the Navvai Shift. Today I got my co-host Darnell, and today we're joined by Alex Seleska. He's the founder and CEO of Spartan Capital. Alex is building something, in my opinion, I feel is very rare, which is an investment platform that combines flexible syndicate capital with hands-on founder support. Alex, how are you doing today? You well?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. Nice.
Amazing stuff. It's a pleasure to actually have you here. Now, I wanted to start with the beginning of your journey. Um,
Sure.
what made you want to launch Spartan Capital?
Um, to be honest, as with most of these things, it was far more accident than design. I basically I gave up trying to work for someone else when I was about 27. I just went and set up my own company at 27 years old. No real idea what I was doing. I just decided, you know what, I'm going to go and do this because I'm fed up of trying to work for other people. And so I launched a tech company at that moment in time, and that was a pretty run of the mill, pretty standard digital marketing company. So that began life as. That quickly changed over time. We came up with some different products and some different ways of doing things and some individual solutions that we offered and no one else did, and so on and so on. So that's where it began. And then in 2020, I was able to sell that company off. I sold it off in a few different parts to a few different people, and I was able to sell that off and move away from it. And what had been happening sort of in the run up to that is I've been getting involved with other early stage young founders who were trying to get into the space, trying to get into the game, and it had become through a connection I made to a guy who himself was an investor who ran like a mastermind group and so on, and I'd been along to that, and that really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and from there I started doing more and more work with people in terms of helping them understand the investment space and getting into that a bit more and so on. And then when I sold the business and I kind of had nothing to do, I decided that that was an area that made a lot of sense to me, and so I started down the route of working with early stage founders at that moment in time. And to be honest, it began just like providing like NED services and advisory and consultancy and things like that in that space before it ever became more. But that's the way that I kind of stumbled my way into it, as it were.
That's fine. I feel like the story is very relatable, especially I'll say the kind of age where I'm 26, and yeah, we're very fortunate to be doing this full time. So it's an absolute blessing. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're just trying to continue on that journey to continue to grow as a company. So digital marketing, you said you pivoted off into other stuff, doing
Yeah.
other things. Come on, you can reveal the secret sauce.
Sure. It was still digital marketing. It was still sort of in the digital space, but what we did was we provided a few products that were a bit unique to us. So we built a kind of a build it yourself website and an app and CRM builder program. So basically you could go through and use shopping basket, did what you wanted as a small business, and then it would give you a monthly fee at the end, and you just paid the monthly fee and you got everything that you clicked off in your list as you went through. And what that did is it just made it much easier for small businesses to up and downgrade their tech as and when they needed it. And so that's why we did that. It was I kind of got the idea from. You ever seen one of those websites where you build your own car?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of got the idea from there that you go on and you pick the model and the trim and the interior and the exterior and the wheels and the color and everything like that. I kind of got the idea from that, in that wouldn't that be an easier way to just decide what you want? Because when I started out back then, which was 2013, if you wanted to build a website for your business, you really only had two options. You either had to go onto something like a Wix or something like that and build it yourself, or you had to pay someone to build it for you. Now, Wix and so on at the time were quite good. They were quite easy to work with, but they were very limited in what you could actually have on your website. It was quite limited in terms of what you actually got, the SEO on them, which isn't really much of a thing anymore with AI and so on. But that wasn't very good. There was a number of problems with those. But then if you paid someone, realistically, you were paying a couple of £1,000 minimum to get a website done. And so there was nothing really in between. And so our approach was to try to make something that was in the middle, that you could basically pick what you wanted and then effectively someone else would build it for you. We basically pre-built everything so it all just kind of clicked together. But it was like the tech flat pack, like that's kind of what it was.
Nice. When you started the digital marketing agency, did you have the end goal in mind that you would, when you would build it, you was going to sell it within a few years?
No, I had no idea. When I started it out, I literally started it because I just wanted to run my own business. I had no intention or long term plan whatsoever. It was literally, I was a friend of mine who was playing for the same local football team as me, and that's how we met each other. He built websites. I knew how to sell them because I was working for a company that sold them, and I was running the sales team of a company that sold them. So we got together. I went and started selling them. He started building it, and it just kind of rolled from there. And we had no plan really at all. It was literally just build a business and pay ourselves and see what happens. That was kind of as far as it went in those in that first year or so of business. Was just doing all the work involved in making sure we were getting all the customers in and making enough money to keep ourselves going. And that was pretty much it. There was no more thought given to it at that stage.
Fair play. Just trusted the process with it all.
So Alex, I do want
Kinda,
to ask
yeah.
though, what kind of sparked the interest to change? Like what kind of said, okay, cool, I'm bored now. I'm just gonna sell and move on.
You mean what? You mean when I sold the company? To be honest, it was a couple of things there. One, I had kind of got a bit bored of it, and I was looking for something new and in a new direction to go in. Two, the market was way too saturated by that point. There was just way too many people offering building in websites and all those kind of things, and you were having and the customer acquisition cost was just so high. So it was costing so much money to just get customers in that it just wasn't making enough, and then you couldn't charge them enough to really make it worthwhile, and it was just becoming a bit of a hard slog, to be honest. And third thing, someone offered to buy it. That was yeah, someone offered to
That's
buy it,
helpful.
and immediately I just went, you know what? Yeah, that's that's a good option. I'll take that. And so I did that. But to be honest, there wasn't. I wouldn't say there was a single moment where the decision just hit me. It was a combination of things where I'd kind of been thinking about a new way to go, a new business to do, a new thing to get into, a new thing to do, and then those factors all kind of shuffled together, and so it was worth doing it at that stage. Yeah.
I
Nice.
see.
Alex, on the basis, just fire us up, and I mean, you don't need to be. I'm not trying to be intrusive,
That's right.
How much are we talking? How much did
Well,
you sell
how
it
much
for?
we sell the business for?
Yeah.
Well, I won't, I'm not going to reveal the exact number, but it was more than I thought I'd get for it. I can tell you that. It was into the multiple seven figures.
Okay, cool. Amazing.
Yeah.
Darnell,
It was a pretty decent exit. It wasn't huge, but it was enough that gave me the ability to make a decision about what I did next.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, there would have been a lot of experience literally just from that alone. Of course, you took your experience from when you built the marketing agency, and of course, what you're doing right at this precise moment now. Sorry, but what lessons from your young career shape how you still work today with young founders?
Sure. I think the main thing that I was lucky that I had fairly naturally, but I did have to work on it, was just a bit of self-belief. I was confident enough to just go for it and just jump off the cliff and learn to fly. It was I had that fairly intrinsic in me anyway, so I didn't struggle too much with that sort of sense of just going and doing it. But whenever I talk to anyone who's in that space, that's one of the things that I talk to people about. Is there's two things that you need as a founder, really. One is that self-belief that you can do it, and number two is resilience. Because you are going to go through some shit times. You are going to go through some times during your during running a business where you wake up in the morning and you're like, what is the point? You know, why am I doing this? Why am I bothering doing this? I could just go and work for someone else and be paid every month, whether I do well or not. You know, whether I try hard or not, I can still get paid at the end of the month. Whereas this, I've got to try really hard all the time to make sure that that we're getting what we want, and we're growing and we're developing, and we're actually getting where we want to get to. So you've got to have the resilience to get through that. And luckily, again, a little bit of my past life was prepared me for that. When I was in my teen years, I did Army cadets, and then went on and did the section for the regular army and the parachute regiment and so on. And when I did that, you learn how to just take shit. You know what I mean? You genuinely learn just how to have someone scream at you and it not have any effect. You learn how to just let bad stuff wash over you and just get on and do what you know you've got to do. And I've got to say that was, you know, looking back, that was probably one of the best things that really helped me prepare for life as a founder, was going through stuff like that.
Nice.
So-
Would you say, so saying that, I mean, do you reckon you could, do you reckon you could participate with in a workout with what's his name again?
No, certainly not anymore. I mean, I'm fit. I'm fairly fit. I do keep myself pretty fit, and I do make sure I work out quite regularly and so on. But I'm certainly nowhere near as fit as I was when I was 20 and doing all that. No.
I was trying to make the correlation to what you've done with David Goggins, because he's very hardball, and like his mindset is just
You
on
do
another
have to
level.
have a bit of that. You do have to have a bit of the focus on yourself, and really what you're doing is you're competing with yourself. You're only looking to try to improve who you are and what you're doing, and what you can do better now than yesterday, for example. That's really the thing that you're doing. If you're comparing yourself to everybody else and the other people in your peer group and other things like that, you're going to get quite disappointed quite quickly, because again, you're seeing the exterior, you're seeing the facade, you're seeing what you do that looked good from the outside, because that's the thing they're showing you. They're very rarely showing you all the struggle and all the stuff that's going on in the background. But you've got to kind of get through those things. And so, in some ways, you're training your mind and your mind and your mindset almost much as anything else.
So, Alex, just on the topic of resilience, as a founder, how important do you think it is to actually have a reason why?
I think my answer to that is not typical, because although I think your reason why is ultimately the thing that's going to get you where you want to get to, you need to have at some point an orientation to a true north of some sort, something you are going for and something you are working your way towards. When I started, my only reason why is I didn't want to work for someone else again. So it was a fairly vacuous reason for doing it. It didn't have a lot of thought behind it. But and so you don't need a really powerful reason why, in my experience. You don't need to have a really compelling "this is why." However, the better you get and the more you're able to define a good reason why, and a good reason why you're doing it, the better you will get at moving yourself in the direction you want to go. You know, you've got to think of it almost in the metaphor I sometimes use is Columbus sailing for America in some way. You've got you're kind of going, well, or is anyone exploring back in the days when they didn't know if the world was flat or if it had an edge where they just sail off the edge or whatever. They didn't know. They would just set out And as they set out, they would start guiding themselves in a rough direction of where something looked like it might be, and then they'd find something. They'd see if it was good there when they got there, and then they go and try to find something else. And it's a similar kind of thing. You are exploring where you're trying to get in life, and so you've got to have a certain mentality to just step outside and just hit the road without really knowing where you're going to go. Because ultimately, I think that many people probably do know the reason why. It's just hard for them to even articulate it to themselves. I didn't know the reason why when I was 27. I just know I didn't want to work for anyone else. Now I know that my main reason why is that I can be exponentially more successful doing things myself than I can working for someone else. And so that ultimately gives me a better ability to provide for my family and build the life that I want to build for them. So that's my primary reason now. 27, I didn't have any of that. It was all me. It was all what I wanted, and I wasn't really thinking any further ahead than that. But ultimately, I think that that's what it boiled down to at the end of the day.
Understood.
That whole passage, I was zoned in. And
Yeah.
wow, yeah, I absolutely love that.
Even I did want to ask as well, Alex. You gave the analogy of like Christopher Columbus and you're just sailing. You try things, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. When would you say is the optimal time to maybe realize that actually it's not working and you switch? Because I feel like sometimes it's better to quit while you're ahead, and sometimes you're literally just round the corner from success. So when would you kind of define it, that pivotal point?
Yeah. In all honesty, I think that's a fairly unsolvable equation, because it is absolutely the case that you don't want to end up flogging the dead horse. But at the same time, sometimes, you are just days away from that big success that's going to change things. And have you ever heard the story of 6 feet from gold? You ever heard that story?
I was literally going to say 3 feet from gold.
Yeah, 3 feet. Yeah, 3 feet from gold. Yeah, have you heard that story? So it's the one of the guys that were in. I think it was. I've got a feeling it was Nevada or somewhere like that. It was in
Napoleon
America.
Hill.
Yeah, it's a
Napoleon
real
Hill's wrote a
story
book
about
on
these
it.
guys who were mining a hill looking for gold, and they'd been mining and mining and mining, and eventually they were just like, oh, there's nothing here, and they gave up and they left. Someone else bought the mine off them, got someone to come and take a look, and they moved the mine 3 foot over and hit the gold that was there, and they literally gave up 3 feet away from hitting the gold. So you don't know where that's going to be. You might be digging your way through a hill with nothing in it. You might. And that's part of the adventure of entrepreneurship in a way. You just don't know if there is treasure at the end of it. You honestly don't know. And I think for me, it's what I have done throughout my career since I went on my own and started my own businesses. What I have done is continually refined what I do. Rather than giving up necessarily, what I've done is going, okay, that thing that we're doing there isn't working, so we're going to stop doing that and do this instead. Or this particular thing could be more effective, so we're going to change it and do it this way. And so long as you keep kind of moving yourself in that direction and you're prepared to keep that going, then generally you're going to get something out of it. You're going to get a reward out of it. God loves a trier, as they say. It's if you keep going with, and you keep yourself thinking about what you can be doing better all the time, then that's what you do. Now, that doesn't mean, because I often get this one where people say, oh, does that mean just work harder? No, it doesn't. You can work smarter rather than harder. You don't need to be killing yourself for 16 hours a day every single day, hoping you're gonna eventually hit gold, because you might just burn yourself out and eventually keel over and wonder what it was all for. You've got to find a thing what works for you personally. I know that I'm a morning person. I know that it's better for me to get up at 6 to get to work around about 7, half 7, and bang everything through until about 2 in the afternoon, and then do a fairly chilled one for the rest of the day. And sometimes I'll even knock off at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, depending on how far I've gone, because I'm far more effective in the morning. And I know that if I'm trying to churn my way through a contract at 6 o'clock at night, what I'm going to produce is going to be kind of shit in income to what I can produce if I just do it in the morning. And so you kind of have to learn a little bit about what works for you, and how you work best and what functions best for you. But so long as you are continually paying attention and you're continually looking to improve what you're doing, you ultimately will almost always arrive at something that's worthwhile.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree to that, because I think one thing that we kind of realized is that when we initially started the business, we were just going full steam ahead. Like as you said, we're just working, working, working. But then we kind of realized that what are we working? We're spending time working for the business, but we need to work on the business and actually see it from like a holistic point of view. And I think ever since we kind of realized that, and we actually have our strategic direction now, I think that the results are, correct if I'm wrong, but I think the results are pretty much instantaneous.
Oh, yeah, they do. They really do. That will always bear itself out. The opportunity to take a step back. It's the whole, how you think of yourself as a as someone that's running a business. You've got to think of yourself in the sense of like, you're effectively, you're the general of an army, okay, and the general of the army doesn't go on into the trenches and fight in the front lines, because although I might tell them what some of the soldiers are dealing with, it's not actually going to help them win the war, because they've got to be looking at the entire picture. And so the general fighting in the front line is always going to struggle to see the entire picture, whereas the one that is got a higher elevated view of it, is at the back and it can see everything, is going to be ultimately more successful. And so that you've got to kind of think of it in the same kind of way. You're effectively the general or the generals of your army, and you are looking to direct what you're doing rather than lead all the charges. Now, obviously, when you're a first time founder, when you're early days, you're doing everything. You're leading the charges. You're fighting the battle. You're running the campaign. You're getting the supply chain working. You're doing everything. So that's something you have to deal with, and that's just a fact of life that is unavoidable. When you start out, you're always going to be doing everything. That's just the way.
Wearing multiple hats.
Yeah, you're
every
wearing
single
multiple
day.
hats, and the only advice I would give someone there is you just have to carve out the time to take the step back. That's the main advice there. You've just got to make sure that you're not spending every hour, every waking minute of every day just plugging away to achieve to try to achieve things without taking that step back and taking a look.
Yeah, no, 100%. So from what I'm aware is that Spartan offers more than just funding. It delivers support through coaching, founder groups, and venture building, which I feel is very important and it's essential in 2025 and moving forward. Now, I know a lot of firms talk about value add. Now, what does value add look like in practice at Spartan?
I think from our perspective, the value add that we're bringing is predominantly that almost everybody within our operation is an exited former founder themselves. So pretty much every single person that they're going to be working with is someone who knows exactly what they're going through, who knows exactly what it's like to start at the bottom, build up, and get to the end result. And a lot of them have done it several times. So one of the major values we're adding to people is the knowledge and experience of having been there, gone and done it. And really actually knowing what they're about. One of my biggest problems with VCs is that so many people in VCs have never run a business. So many people in that area have gone to a university and then gone and worked for an investment bank and then gone and set up a VC firm, and none of them have built a startup ever. So when they're assessing startups, they're not assessing them the way that someone who understands startups would assess them. And so it's always kind of, to me, causes a bit of a problem there in my experience. It's creating a disconnect that they're not really getting around. So I find that one of our major value adds is that. The second value add is the size of our network. We've got a very substantial network of people all around the world. We've got investors all over the place. We've got startups all over the place. We've got founders from everywhere. We've got people with experience in just about every sector you could mention. And so one of the things we're able to do is really expand the network of people who are joining us and who are coming on board with us, because we're really making a very substantial difference in terms of who they can reach, how they can reach people, where they can actually get to, what countries they can get into the markets in, and so on. So those are the two top of the list ones. There's a multitude of other things. The coaching that we provide, the mentorship we provide, all those kind of things are really strong as well. And obviously the investment we can bring to the table, but the real top two value adds are those things.
Solid stuff. I'm going to ask this on just for my own personal gain. Well, I'll say for Navvai's gain. But how do you know when a founder is a good fit for the Spartan ecosystem?
It ultimately comes down to character. One of the things that we do is through our kind of process of applying and then working with the customers and so on before we take them through into our funding programs and so on, is we're assessing the character of the founders. Are they people that deliver when they say they're going to deliver? Are they people that are blaming the rest of the world while wishing that everything would just magically fix itself, or are they people that just get up and get things done? We're looking for the character of those founders and who they are and what their drives are as well. We're not looking for every single founder to have a deep, meaningful drive behind what they're doing, but we're looking to understand what it is that drives them, what kind of risk they're taking on, what their attitude to risk is. Because if there's somebody that's got a low attitude to risk as a founder, they will bail out at the first sign of trouble. They've got to have a decent attitude to risk there and a good appetite for it. So it's a number of things that we're really looking at. We care about their ability to analyze themselves. So we need people who are reasonably self-aware, who are prepared to look at what they're doing and critique it and say, we've improved on this. We've done, I noticed this, and actually we could be doing it better. Again, we're looking for people who are driving themselves. Almost any investor in the world really wants to be investing in someone that's going to do it themselves. Very few investors want to put money into a company where the person that's in charge needs their hand holding all the time, because ultimately the investor could just go, well, why am I investing in the business? I might as well buy it and run it myself if that's the case. So it's, it just makes more sense to do it that way. There are a number of factors, and obviously, as I mentioned, the main character traits and the main things we're interested in, we take a quick assessment of those as well.
Nice, because you've been there before. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I get the vibe you guys are just not a traditional fund. I feel like there is it's a deeper network. It feels like it's like a family you're being part of.
It kind of is a little bit, yeah. We try to build it like a community. We've tried to make it more like that because again, we just find that there's so much more value that can be added to someone that way. So, if let's say we take a founder on and they've got an early stage business, it's quite an interesting idea, but they're quite early stage. They're always going to struggle to raise money. So at that early stage, no matter how good your idea is, you're always going to struggle to raise money then, because a lot of people are like, it's too early, too high risk at the moment. Let's let's wait a bit. Let's see how far you can get, and so on. And often that journey of getting from that point to far enough along to actually get an investor to take that risk on them can be quite long. Whereas when they're in our network, what actually happens is, because they've got that extra network and that extra community and that extra level of ability around them, they can generally very much shorten that time frame, and they can make very big leaps and bounds in where they can get with the business, which then helps them with the investment as well. It's a number of things, and the reason we've done it that way is that it just generally improves the results for the founders, and ultimately that improves the results for us. We want to have companies that we're investing into that don't fail. So the more we can do to reduce the likelihood of failure, the better. So it just makes sense for us to do it that way.
Where do we sign up?
Well, actually, this is quite fortuitous that we've ended up doing the podcast today, because literally today I've launched Spartan Ventures, which is our wider brand. So Spartan Capital is like my little family office that sits in the middle of it. Spartan Ventures is literally just launched today, so we've got the website up. We've just put an announcement on LinkedIn and so on out. But that is our kind of our official brand of our entire network. So it's what brings in all that 360 value and supplies it to us and so on. And you can go to Spartan.Ventures. That's our website. You can go and take a look there, and you can see some information on us. You can see where you can apply and all those kind of things. So it's all on there.
No worries. We're going to link it below. Don't worry. They're going to have access to it.
It's okay.
Amazing. I know there's been a lot of it's super positive, this podcast. I'm actually loving it so far. If you could wave a wand, right, and change one thing about startup funding today, what would that be?
I think there's actually two things that need to change in startup funding. Two primary things, and it's the one that everybody knows, which is the ease of access to capital. That's always going to be the one that is the top of the list. That is juxtaposed, of course, by the fact that the reason capital isn't easy to access is because the failure rate in startups is extremely high. So therefore, there's a natural risk mitigation from the investment side to be a bit careful about where it puts investments. There's always going to be a part of that. What I've been spitballing around for a little while, and to be fair, even though I've kind of done a bit of research and digging around it, I've never come up with anything that so far is a workable model of this. But what I've been considering doing is trying to build something that's effectively like a startup, a kind of loan fund, where if you're an early stage founder and you want to go and dedicate yourself to being able to do something and launching a business, for example, what it will do is you will effectively go into a loan fund that would be securitized in some way, shape, or form to obviously protect the people on the other end. But what would happen is you would, instead of you getting a big chunk of money to go and throw at everything, because a lot of people would just waste it and a lot of people would spend it on things they shouldn't spend it on. So on, what it would do instead is it would give you like a monthly salary to allow you to step away from your job and spend your time building the business for a certain period of time. It would pay you every month a certain amount of money that you could live on, that would allow you to spend all your time trying to build your new business. And I've often thought that something like that would probably encourage a lot more people to try it and give it a go, because one of the biggest risks you face in entrepreneurship is that you are stepping away from that security of a regular paying job and trying to do it all by yourself, and there is that risk. So I've thought about how we could structure something that provided that. I haven't landed on anything workable yet. It's still on the back burner. It's still something I intend to try to make happen at some point.
That would be huge. I'm not too sure if you saw me take off my hat, but
I
I mean,
did.
hats off to you. But I mean, that would be super impressive.
Yeah, I really think that something like that would be worthwhile, and I think it's one of those things that will get a lot of people doing it. It will certainly encourage people to take that leap and take that risk and get into the entrepreneurial space and so on. It will certainly encourage that. Excuse me, sorry.
Bless you.
Bless you.
It will certainly encourage that, and it will de-risk it for some people to some degree, so they can at least make that go of it and have a runway to work with. And I think that's the biggest barrier to it at the moment, is that it is the size of risk that someone has to take. So yeah, I would love to develop something like that at some point, and there's definitely ways to do it. Just haven't come up with one yet.
I'm sure you will, Alex. If there's anyone who have faith in to do it, it's you. But no worries. But I do have a question. So on the topic of entrepreneurship, I feel like the sentiment in somewhere like America is way higher than somewhere like the UK. Why do you think that is?
I think there's a number of factors behind that, because part of the reason I moved to the US was because there's a better environment for it here. I think it's cultural. I really think it is, and it goes back a long way. You can make the argument that in effect America is the first country ever that was founded by entrepreneurs, not by royals. pretty much every other country in the world was founded by a royal family of some sort who controlled everything at the time, and got it by military force, and then imposed themselves upon it, and so on. You can make that argument. America is kind of the first country ever that was effectively built by entrepreneurs, and so I think it's kind of in the blood of the nation to some degree, and that is where I think the biggest difference comes in. I have found in the US the attitude to risk is exponentially better than it is in Europe and the UK. Now, if I was to look at a spectrum from the point of view of, say, investments, you've got the US over here being very high risk tolerant for investments and taking risks and taking punts on interesting ideas and things like that. And then you've got Europe at the far end, which wants to see 2 years of accounts from a company that's been running a month. You've got these kind of two ends of the spectrum, and that's why Europe's got like 5 unicorns, whereas America's got like well over 100. I think it might even have 500 odd unicorns in America. It's a load of unicorns that have come out of America. Whereas, and then you've got the UK, which between these 2 points is kind of here. It's slightly better than Europe, but it's nowhere near America. It's still a long way behind the curve as far as the US side of things goes. And so I think the biggest thing comes down to attitude to risk. I really do think it is. And also in and alongside that is the way they view entrepreneurship and success. Because in the UK and in Europe, in some circumstances, in some instances, success is seen as a dirty word. It's almost seen like, like it's not fair that you're achieving success and someone else isn't. Whereas America is built on achieving success. There's a load more capital available because everybody's going after the same thing. Everybody's looking to build as much as possible. Whereas it's very different in the UK. It's very different in Europe. It's there's a very small community of people who are prepared to celebrate success, and it's mildly depressing because I honestly couldn't tell you exactly what needs to change, but my feeling is that what has to happen is the world is especially in Europe, UK as well, need to start paying more attention to what America's doing right and do more of it.
As Les Brown says, you got to be hungry.
Yeah, you do. You do have to be hungry. You have to be hungry, and you have to be prepared to take those risks and try things. It really is necessary.
No risk, no rewards, no pain, no gain. Simple as that. Now, Alex, I know you've probably seen, well, everyone's seen the buzzword around artificial intelligence. A lot of more businesses.
Yeah.
Some businesses, I'll say a lot of businesses are still not, using it as of such, before there's a handful that are. At Spartan Capital, where are you guys at with that? Have you guys looked into it, utilizing it?
Our use perspective of AI, or are you talking about our perspective on the companies using AI and AI companies? Is that what you're talking about?
I would say your use perspective.
Okay. So we use it. I think it's one of those things these days that if you're not using it as a company, you're missing out. And actually, it's come to a point in capital now where if a company comes to you and says we're using AI, it's a bit like, well, that doesn't mean anything anymore. You should be. Yeah. It's a bit like a company in 2003 coming to you and saying we're using the internet. It's like, well, everyone is, so it doesn't make any difference. We use it for a number of things. We mostly use it as an efficiency tool, which is what I think it should be. Using it as a tool to just help us analyze things quicker, help us find things more effectively, help us match opportunities to investments and things like that a bit easier, to help us analyze big reams of information more quickly and so on. That's what we use AI for ourselves. As far as when we look at companies that are in the AI ecosystem and from an investment perspective, again, we're looking at risk profile there from some degree, in that if they're a company that, say, built themselves a wrapper around ChatGPT and they've built something that's effectively built off of an existing AI, for example, although that doesn't necessarily matter because they've built effectively like a bot that fits on top of the AI and gives it the correct inputs to get the outputs that it's looking for and provides those and so on. That's fine. The problem is that there's an inherent risk that what's actually happening is that those larger AI models, the open AIs, the Groks, the one that's Claude and so on, those ones, they're potentially learning the bots, and so at some point they'll be better than the bots. And then they'll just take over, and the bots and the wrapper companies that have been built around them will no longer be able to compete with the main model. That's a risk factor in there. That being said, if someone's building their own AI from the ground up, that is a long-term, very heavy lift with a lot of cost involved in it. And so, it's there's a risk there in that there's a lot more money to be put into something like that to get it to where it needs to go, but it will be a lot more protected from an IP perspective. So there's both sides of the coin, as it were. But yeah, I mean, my perspective is that if AI is being utilized correctly, utilized correctly by a company, you can have a company with 2 employees doing the job of 30 if you're using AI correctly. Whereas if you're using it incorrectly, you could end up with 2 employees trying to do the work of 10 people themselves and failing completely because they're just overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that AI is layering on top of them.
Darnell's our tech guy.
Don't put the pressure on me.
I'm surprised you don't have a rebuttal for that. You usually got a rebuttal for everything.
Did I answer the question? I wasn't sure if I ended up waffling a bit there, but did that actually answer the question?
No.
You 100% did. You basically just said AI is basically changing. It's probably fair to say, your deal flow, diligence, and support effectively.
Yeah.
Would you say it's generally helping like investors and founders work better on a collaboration basis?
I think it, as a general, is being employed mostly incorrectly in most of the investment spaces I'm seeing it being used. From the investment side of things, what it's generally being employed to do is do a massive meta-analysis to analyze the chances of success of a brand new small company that they're taking a look at. And although that could be accurate, it is naturally, therefore, dismissing companies that might actually get somewhere because the metadata says no. It's like the computer says no kind of approach to investing. And so in a lot of those instances, I don't actually particularly like the way it's being deployed and implemented there. I think, as with everything, AI is a tool. And it's how you use it that matters. A hammer is a tool, and if you're using it to bang in nails, that's great. You can use it to kill someone. That doesn't mean that you should, or that that's the necessary right way to use it. But it is an effective tool for doing that. That's the problem, is that it's the employment of the tool that actually matters. And a lot of the time, especially when a tool is new, people employ it in the wrong way.
The simple analogy is just we've got a few viral clips from this podcast. I'm just making it abundantly clear.
I just want to say, I think that's one of the reasons why we even started the podcast in the first place, because like you said, AI is like it's a buzzword, and everyone's AI, but in terms of the actual implementation of it, I feel like when we have conversations, we'll have conversations for maybe like 5-10 minutes, and you can see exactly where someone's at, because we've had it numerous times. So it's just intriguing to see like where someone's digital journey has actually come from, and then even like you said, the application of it. There's so many tools out there. Like, for example, there's one tool called IO, sorry, which essentially allows you to actually build a piece of software. So even there's so many actual people that doesn't know about it. So I think it comes from like 2 standpoints. One, where people don't actually know the tools out there that can help them, and 2, the implementation of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the other thing that's affecting it is that we're in an AI bubble at the moment. What's happening, because there's it's this new thing, and it's definitely going to have a major impact on the world in a load of different ways. What you're getting is the gold rush of people running in to build AI tools and getting into the AI space. and you're getting investments going in and investments going into stuff that is ultimately going to turn to shit, and so it's inflating a bubble, and at some point or another there will be a burst of that, and lots of small AI companies will either die completely or they'll get hoovered up by the big boys, and you'll end up with 4, 5, 6 maybe major players who run most of the AI marketplace. There will always be a space for individual and smaller businesses with very specialized AIs and so on, but I think that there is all the hallmarks of a bubble in the AI space are there, and so we tread fairly carefully around new ideas in AI itself. We tend to look more strongly at the infrastructure required in the AI space. That's what we tend to look at more, because one way or the other, there's only going to be an increased demand for that.
Absolutely. But I do want to ask, so are you talking mainly about LLMs? Because I feel like with AI, I feel like there's so many kind of different industries. So although it can get souped up by one big bubble, I feel like because it can be adopted in so many different industries, I feel like it might be a bit more distributed than that, if you know what I'm
It
trying,
is a
if you know what I'm
bit.
saying.
I think it is a bit. Obviously, the LLMs are the most well-known, widely used,
Yeah.
and most kind of prominent things that are there. And I've had a very deep philosophical argument with somebody before about whether or not you can even call it AI, whether it's just very advanced algorithms.
That's true. That's true.
And so, there's still an argument to be had there, I think. And AGI is the kind of the next step with things, and when and if there is the well, I say it's more when than it is if, but at some point there's going to be the marriage of AI and quantum computing power, and no one knows how that's going to turn out at the moment. It is distributed in as much as there's lots of different things that AI does. Ultimately, it's all backed onto the same idea, which is that you're building a very advanced algorithm to make its own decisions and go and find information itself and analyze information automatically for you and so on. So it's it is ultimately a really interesting space that is only going in one direction. That is, adoption is just continually just going up the curve. There is that is without any doubt, and it's backing the right horses in the race that's difficult, because it's a little bit like going to the racetrack and seeing 100,000 horses come running out of the stalls at the same time. You've got to pick the one that you think is going to win. At that point, your chances are low. So it's there's a little bit of that going on at the moment, and I just think that there's going to be a plateauing and a flattening off and so on in the not too distant future. Personally, I'm still waiting for the moment at which AI becomes what it really should be, which is like a personal assistant for everyone. What you want is an AI that is native to your operating system in everything that you're running. You want it to be native on your laptop, on your PC, on your phone, on everything, so that it can do everything within all of those for you automatically, and all you got to do is talk to it, and it will do all the stuff that you need it to do. That's really where it needs to get to, and it's not far off of being there. It's got the ability to get there in the not too distant future. And I think that the problem with it at the moment, adoption wise, is that it's an app that sits on top of an operating system, and so it's got a limitation. Once there's operating systems in which it is intrinsically built, that's when it will really change the world.
And how far do you think away?
Hopefully not long, but you never know how long these things are going to take to actually bed in and become real. I would say, at current pace, 2 to 3 years, probably. I would guess before we're at that point where you've got AI native operating systems, but we'll see.
I could picture that. I think in terms of even the tools that we develop, I feel like that's why we're very kind of slow to develop things, because, like I said, there's so many different AI tools. It's just that number one, people don't know about them. People don't know how to use them. So literally, the only tool that we've built and we'll build a Sun because is essentially just our lead generation tool. Because as much as there's lead generation tools out there, they're they're rich shit because we was using them
They
initially,
are.
and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna build one myself. So it just takes it from a bunch of different depositories. I can put in a bunch of different parameters, and then we just get so much better results. And at least that's something that we have in house as well. So as much as everyone's gonna use the online ones, they're rich shit. So I said, let's just keep that. And then I'm kind of thinking, because like I said, I like to be very careful with development, especially because we don't have unlimited capital. So it's just like, I think I might be letting off too many secrets here, but we might be working on a CRM tool. A lot of people, again, they have like CRMs, they have their data, but they don't know, for example, like you have leads that convert and leads that don't convert, but then you don't know the analytics in those leads that did convert and how to compare them. So that's potentially something. Well, we're looking at a few ideas, but that one is probably the main one we're looking at. But who knows? Maybe next. I was gonna say, who knows? Maybe next month there might be another tool that's just been created, and then
They could. I think the ultimately the thing that AI is best at the moment is analyzing and aggregating massive amounts of data quickly. That's what it's very good at doing. It can do that better than anything else on the planet. It is the best thing for doing that. And if you find the best way to get it to employ it in that space, then it will pay its dividends back to you.
100%. And I think that's one of the main things we have, is that we take our time to kind of really actually understand how to use these different tools and to how to implement their business. So that way, at least number one, we don't have to build it. Number two, we can get cash in quite quickly. So we just teach someone how to use it or do it for them. So
exactly.
Hey, it's not all about the money. You know, we're integral. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm saying on the podcast, they're gonna hear this. It's not a secret.
Fair play.
No secret.
It's not our fault people are lazy, okay?
That's true. No, you're right. But Alex, you've built Spartan from the ground up. What's next for you guys?
Next at the moment is to build the Spartan Ventures side of it out a lot more. We are looking to build that out here in the US quite substantially. We've got a sort of a target AUM that we're aiming to get. We've got a couple of very big deals in our works at the moment that will put us into an entirely new space, and then we can kind of figure out what we do next from there. But it's we're in a very good spot. Our intention is just to keep doing what we're doing. Try to work with as many really interesting startups as possible, and ultimately our primary thesis: we want to invest in the things that encourage and influence human flourishing. And so long as we can find our way to doing that, we're happy.
Alex, we'll be watching the journey. Pretty sure we'll 100% be staying in contact as well.
Thank you.
I gotta say thank you. This has been a brilliant conversation. So many takeaways, so many golden nuggets that we can take from this.
Excellent.
Again, I know we're gonna continue this relationship anyway, and we're gonna have a conversation off.
But yeah, this is I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate you inviting me on. Had a great time. I do have to jump off now because I've got another meeting, but it's been really good to speak to you. And yeah, I look forward to when this goes live.
Amazing stuff. Well, guys, that's been another episode of the Navvai Shift. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.